left to right, Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get a hell yeah!
What's going on, guys? What's happening? It is Dives, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Welcome to Party on Broad. On tap for today, we're going to talk Eagles draft, and more Eagles draft. Joining us today is our co-host, Jack. You know him at Jack Connell TPL on Twitter. What's going on, man?
Nothing much, with the Busy Day podcast. We just talked to our guy, Mike McCartney, NFL agent, represents Kirk Cousins and many other guys. Had a great chat. Talked about kind of the current state of the NFL, free agency, the NFL draft. It's a great pod. I'm ready, excited for it to be put out there and for you guys to listen to it. I'm ready to talk some Eagles NFL draft here.
Joining us today is a special guest. You know him as Chris Mallee, at Mallee_Chris_24 on Twitter. One of the best Eagles follows on Twitter. He is a journalist for 4th and Jawn. What's going on, Chris?
Nothing much, guys. And actually, breaking news, Pierre Desir just signed with the Jets on a 1-year deal.
All right.
Yeah, I know the Eagles are looking at him. He'll probably drop in like a minute or two. But yeah, his agent just posted about it. But yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Love it, man. Draft season, baby. Is there anything better?
No, there really isn't. It's unfortunate that the draft's going to be a little weird this year, but it's especially because the kids, I really want them to get like the spotlight put on them. But all in all, it's going to be really exciting to have the draft and just like sports back in like a month.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about our top targets in the first round and beyond. We're going to do a mock draft, a 4-round mock draft, who we think would be realistic picks, and then who would be like the home run dream pick for each picks in that top 4 rounds. Let's get started. So the Eagles added a beast on the defensive line, a solid number 1 corner in free agency. Chris, which positions for the Eagles should be the main priority in this year's draft?
I think that cornerback just took a back seat to wide receiver and linebacker. I think right now I'd probably order it wide receiver, linebacker, and then you kind of can debate like cornerback first, interior offensive line, and then D-line took a back seat to everything. Mainly in the first, second round, you're looking linebacker or wide receiver.
What about you, Jack?
So my order, I go wide receiver, cornerback, linebacker, O-line, D-line. So I still think cornerback, there's a lot of talent in these first couple rounds. You still need somebody long-term to kind of be a staple of the position. So I still think you'll target a corner early on. Linebacker, I've said it before and I'll say it again. You need linebacker depth. You got a couple hits so far, but I mean, you still need some solid guys at the position. I think wide receiver, I think, is the well-known number 1 target for the Eagles. You're going to see that very early on. You need some offensive line depth. You lost Vaitai. Jason Peters, you don't know what's going on there, so you really don't have many backups. And then defensive line, you could always use some depth there. I mean, they just brought in, like you said, Javon Hargrave. So I think you won't see much early on, but you'll still see some stuff in the later rounds.
Yeah, man. For me personally, like when you look at the current makeup of this team, man, I'm going D-line. Obviously, you start with wide receiver and cornerback, obviously. But the D-line, it's looking good, albeit there's no real star at defensive end. Brandon Graham, he's getting older. Derek Barnett, he's still somewhat of a mystery. But, man, when you hear the Yannick rumors, I think they have depth there. They have depth pieces there at defensive end, but I think they want a star. And I would be shocked if they don't spend at least one of their top 3 picks on a defensive end. So I go wide receiver, cornerback, defensive end, and then linebacker. I'd probably put, personally, linebacker above defensive end, but that's just not the way the Eagles operate, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's talk about your Howie Roseman. Do you expect the Eagles to move up, trade back, or stay put at 21? Go ahead, Chris.
Howie Roseman, he rarely stays still with his picks, like we saw last year that Dillard started sliding, so he moved up, like Wentz trade, and like he's moved back in the past. Personally, I think that it's just going to be draft day feel. They're going to see how everyone's going. If the big 3 wide receivers, Lamb, Ruggs, and Jeudy, they're there at 10, and Cleveland gives them a call, like Andrew Berry, who used to work here last year, it's going to be really tempting to move up. I don't know if we're going to. I would assume, looking at the Pittsburgh trade for Devin Bush last year, it would probably cost 1, 2, 3, and you could probably stagger the year for the 2 or the 3. It's tough because at 21, I think that they're going to have their pick. It's going to be like Justin Jefferson, Mims, if they really, really like him, maybe Patrick Queen or Murray, even though I don't think they're evaluating the linebacker group like that. But I personally think that they're going to stick at 21 unless there is a trade up. Or if it's just a completely stacked at 21, they can maybe move back to Miami's pick at 26 and then get like another second or third.
Love it. What about you, Jack?
I think kind of based on kind of like what Chris said, I think if you see I really like Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb. They're my two wide receivers I really much like in this draft. If they're starting to fall a bit and you have an opportunity to move up a little bit, I think you'll say move up. Or if it's very stacked, you're going to trade back. I mean, kind of along the same lines of what Chris said exactly. I mean, it really just depends on the day of the draft and how things move along. But I could really see moving up, moving back, same. But I really could see any one of them happen. It really just depends on what the moves are that are made outside Philadelphia.
I think every single day, 2 months ago, every other day I was changing. I want to trade up. I want to trade back. I couldn't decide. But the last month or so, I've been pretty much dead set on trading down into the bottom of the first round. I think the path to this draft for the Eagles is trading down in the first round and then trading up in the second round. And it really comes down to Howie Roseman understanding and being able to kind of use his crystal ball and find out when that second run of wide receivers starts in that second round. That's a big one. And let's talk about pick number 21. We talk about Henry Ruggs, CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy. These are the top three wide receivers in this draft. How would you rank those in this draft? Go ahead, Chris.
I would say today, based on accolades, NFL readiness, I'd probably be Lamb, Jeudy, Ruggs. But I think in like a couple years, it might be Lamb, Ruggs, Jeudy. It's tough because a lot of people like that I talk to, they just think Ruggs is like just a straight line speed guy. He's really raw, and that is true. He is raw, but at the same time as being raw, he still has had like tremendous numbers. He's had about 800 yards all 3 seasons, multiple touchdowns, plays against the top competition. You've seen him against LSU, Florida, and he's a burner. But at the same time, like he's good at high pointing the ball. He's aggressive. He's tough. Rarely injured. That's why people kind of got startled when he grabbed his hamstring at the combine. But at the same time, is Henry Ruggs, he's as clear-cut prospect as you get. And there's a reason why a lot of people are talking about him as a top 15 pick.
Go ahead, Jack.
I really like Jerry Jeudy. I think he's an NFL-ready wide receiver. He's a really good route runner. I think he would fit the Eagles best in what they need right now, which is a young wide receiver that can bring something to the table right away for Philly. So I do really like Jerry Jeudy. CeeDee Lamb has kind of like the best physical traits. He's not the best route runner, but I mean, I feel like that's something you can kind of fix and coach in the pros. But I mean, the physicals, you can't really teach that stuff. So that's what I really like about him. And kind of we talked about with Ruggs, he's just a really fast guy, but I really do like the fit of the other two guys in Philadelphia compared to him. So I really put those two above Henry Ruggs.
Yeah, I go Lamb, I go Ruggs, and then I go Jeudy. I think you can't miss with any of these three guys. They're extremely good. But for me, when I saw Henry Ruggs and watched his tape, like that was love at first sight. It has been consistently with that. And let's talk about pick number 21. Assuming the Eagles stay put at number 21, who are your top targets with the 21st pick? Go ahead, Chris.
I think Justin Jefferson is like a realistic pick at 21. I know that his draft stock is kind of like been all over the place, including like people. I feel like every month or like every 2 weeks, there's kind of been like a guy at 21, like, oh, we might get him. It's been like Jalen Reagor, it's been Mims, it's been Brandon Ayuk, it's been Justin Jefferson. Other than that, I really would like them to value the linebacker position more because like Patrick Queen and Kenneth Murray, they really would be the icing on top of cake for this defense because you already have to get by that defensive line and that rotation. And then Murray and Queen, like they're incredible. They're so versatile, sure tacklers. I think that they really would stabilize the entire linebacker group. I don't know if they're going to take them. Actually, in a mock I did, I traded back from 21 to 26 with Miami, like I was saying. I picked up another third-round pick, and then I took Murray at 26, and then I moved up. I packaged one of our picks. I took Hamler and Brandon Ayuk back-to-back in the second round. And I thought that was pretty good, or even getting Mims. But I feel like there's like 3 guys I like at 21, or maybe even a trade back.
What about you, man? Go ahead, Jack.
Talk about the receivers, so I kind of picked some guys that weren't really receivers. So I've got Xavier McKinney, the safety out of Alabama. I really think he's a solid guy. I mean, you talk about bringing Jalen Mills to safety, but I mean, if you need the secondary help, you can slide in the corner. I think Xavier McKinney's going to be somebody really good. He's a really aggressive guy. I have Kristen Fulton from LSU, the defensive back. He had 14 deflections in SEC games. I think he's going to be really good. I mean, they're DBU. LSU corners, they're always really solid. There's another one. And you kind of mentioned Kenneth Murray out of Oklahoma, the linebacker. I really like him. I think he's a solid fit linebacker, but I don't know if that's going to happen. because, I mean, Jim Schwartz doesn't really value his linebackers that much. I don't know if they're ever going to really spend a first-round pick on one.
Yeah, man. Jalen Reagor, obviously. I've been on the Jalen Reagor fan train for a long time. He's just what the doctor ordered, man. This guy's a lead at stretching the field, yards after the catch. He would be a perfect fit with Carson Wentz's arm strength. And then I go Justin Jefferson. That 40 time just completely changed kind of everything with this guy. He's always been a very good talent. I just didn't know that he fit exactly what the Eagles needed on the outside. But that 40 time, man, he can stretch the field. And AJ Epinesa, he's quite simply, Derek Barnett is not, I'm just not a believer in Derek Barnett at this time. You look at Brandon Graham, he's not getting any younger. They have Josh Sweat, Deshaun Hall. These guys are just depth guys. These guys are just rotation guys. Give me a stud 6'6" defensive end with all the skills to be a really good starter in that NFL. You know Jim Schwartz loves the defensive end. Everything about the Eagles defense begins and ends on that defensive line, and that's where I think the Eagles are kind of thinking right now. I could be wrong. It happens a lot, but that's just where I'm at. Let's talk about linebacker because, Chris, you brought up Patrick Queen. Love that guy. I think all of Eagles Twitter would freak out if we spent a first-round pick in a good way on a linebacker. The Eagles have a huge hole there right now, obviously. Do you expect the Eagles to make a move for linebacker in the draft? If so, who are some of your top targets beyond Patrick Queen? Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I think they're definitely locked in on getting a linebacker. Probably not until maybe the second to like the 5th round range. Really like Justin Strnad, really good dude. I've talked to him and his coaches. Malik Harrison from Ohio State's a stud. Jordan Brooks from Texas Tech, he's a monster. Logan Wilson from Wyoming, he's really good. He reminds me of Kuechly a little bit. He's real instinctive, impact player. He's a leader. Akeem Davis Gathers. I know Kristen Fulton and I talk about him all the time. I know he's a huge fan and highlights him. And then someone I just posted a film on earlier was Daley Harding. He's actually from Philadelphia, but he grew up in Maryland. He's from Illinois. It's crazy because him and Chase Young were actually battling it out for Big Ten Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. He's the only player who it's like the last 20 years he has this crazy stat in a single game: 10 tackles, a tackle for loss, forced fumble, interception, and touchdown. He's about 6'1", 240. Daley Harding's really good. I think he would be like a sneaky pick in like the 3rd day maybe, because he's not really getting a lot of attention.
What about you, Jack? Any linebackers there that kind of got your eye?
So, I mean, I kind of talked about Kenneth Murray in the first round. I'd like him, but I don't know if that's a realistic option. And then Chris mentioned briefly Malik Harrison out of Ohio State. I think that's a solid linebacker choice. These are kind of day 2 and day 3 options. And they also have Jacob Phillips out of LSU, which I think is another interesting option for them. I think those are kind of 2 guys you could target. I mean, it's going to be likely, like Chris said, it's going to be a day 2, day 3 pick. I would love a first-round linebacker, but I just don't think it's a realistic choice of what's going to happen.
Yeah, Chris, I have 2. Chris brought him up, but Akeem Davis Gaither from Appalachian State, man. Howie Roseman said it, man. He wants speed, and Davis Gaither is just explosively athletic. This guy can get to the quarterback. He's super athletic. I think one of those guys that could also thrive in coverage. And another guy that is kind of interesting, probably day 2, so it's probably like a 1% chance of happening. But Troy Dye from Oregon,
Yep.
He's a really interesting player. He's 6'4", 226 pounds, but this is a guy that thrives in coverage. And the Eagles haven't had a linebacker that can cover in a long time. And 14 passes defended. He's had 5 interceptions. So this is a guy that really has outstanding range. He's got a really good motor. That would be a really good day 2 pick. Troy Dye. All right.
I like Troy. I'm an Oregon guy, so I've watched Dye, but I think he's really grown into his own. I do like him. He's a really hard-hitting guy. He brings a lot of energy, a lot of compassion. Again, I think that's somebody to be interesting. I'd like in Philly.
Awesome. All right, let's go into bold predictions for the NFL draft, and then we're going to do a 4-round mock draft. So, Chris, give me one bold prediction for the Eagles in this NFL draft, man.
I would say a bold prediction is that they're absolutely going to take 2 wide receivers in the draft, but the bold prediction part of it is that they're going to trade back into the 2nd round to take a second one. I have a feeling that they're going to take maybe like Jefferson in the 1st, and like people are going to be like, oh, like, is that like the pick we really want? And then they're going to trade back into the 2nd round early, take like Mims, Rigger, KJ Hamler, Ayuk, and then everyone's like, okay, now we have Carson has like 2 like surefire guys, and it's really, really, really gonna like just excite the city when you get 2 wide receivers in the first 2 rounds.
Love it, man. I'd be so ecstatic with that. Go ahead, Jack.
I mean, I don't know if it's something I want to happen. It's just a prediction of something I could see happening. Is they don't take a wide receiver in the first round.
Yeah.
I could see them, going after a defensive back, a safety, defensive lineman, like you mentioned. That could happen. I would like to see them take a wide receiver. I hope it happens. But that's just a prediction I could see very well happening.
And that's my bold prediction, man. That's my gut feeling. You look at the Eagles' defensive line, all the Yannick rumors going around. They want to trade their first-round pick potentially for Yannick. I don't think this year, but the year after. That's the rumor. But what I would love to see the Eagles do is get a defensive end and get a consistent 4-man rush on that defensive end. And so that's where I'm at. I think it would shock everyone if the Eagles took a defensive end over a wide receiver in that first round. For a long time, man, I was all on that Javon Kinlaw train. It's not going to happen now that they got Hargrave, but that's where I'm at. That's my bold prediction. Let's do a 4-round mock draft. Let's start off with the first-round pick, number 21. We're going to go through a realistic pick, and then we're going to give you our home run pick for the Eagles at each pick of the top 4 rounds. Go ahead, Chris. Number 21.
I have a feeling they are going to take Justin Jefferson, or that's just like the very realistic pick at 21. The home run pick, can we do trades or no trades?
Go ahead, man. Absolutely.
I'll say, all right, you trade 1 this year, 2 this year, and 3 next year, and you go up and get CeeDee Lamb at 10, and you trade with Cleveland. That's like the home run pick.
What about you, Jack?
My mock draft in like my regular pick and my home run pick, if you look at them all together, it doesn't really look like a cohesive draft. I just kind of have good targets of the round and above average targets of the round. So my realistic pick is Kristen Fulton out of LSU, the defensive back. I think, like I mentioned before, I think he's somebody really solid that he could go after 14 deflections. He's just DBU. I've mentioned it all earlier. And a home run pick, if you're just staying pat, would be Jeudy. I think having him fall at 21, he'd be really solid. And I just think that's the really good pickup for the Eagles at 21.
I'm the same. This is funny. Number 21, realistic pick for me is Justin Jefferson. I think all signs point to this guy at number 21. And then my home run pick is a trade up for Henry Ruggs. I'm more of a Henry Ruggs guy, and I think he is just exactly what Carson Wentz would love to have on the outside. Let's move on to the second round, pick number 53. Chris, go ahead, man.
And this is going to go on like last year when I told people that don't rule out taking an offensive lineman early last year, even though everyone's like it's defensive line. Lloyd Cushenberry, center guard from LSU. I like Ben Bredesen from Michigan too, and make maybe the 3rd or 4th round. But I think Lloyd Cushenberry is like perfect because we don't know how long Jason Kelce's going to be playing anymore. He might even he could get banged up this year. He could retire next year. I think that Cushenberry is like perfect, especially in the NFC East. You need to have a stacked offensive line, let alone an entire NFL, but especially in our division. I feel like the trenches win the games, and I think Lloyd Cushenberry would be like perfect pick. Other second round pick is if we don't take a wide receiver, or even if we do, if we double stack, I would have to say Brandon Ayuk. I really like him. I believe in him. I think he has all the intangibles to be an NFL receiver. He's fast, he's big, and the thing that makes him special is that he's one of those guys like Odell Beckham Jr. He can catch a slant pattern and go 90 yards any play.
I love Brandon Ayuk, man. Talk about a guy who really kind of got hurt from not having a pro day, because running a 40 in that 4.5s, man, that when you watch the game tape and you hear a 4.5 40 from Brandon Ayuk, none of that makes sense.
It's the same with Jalen Reagor too. Yeah. And then the craziest thing is Chris Long and Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl. They're actually having their podcast saying the 11 p.m. 40 drove people insane because they're waking up at 5 doing interviews all day, and then at 11 p.m. they finally ran to 40. And they said some of those guys were just spent. Wow. Don't get me wrong, people like Justin Jefferson, they thrived. They ran, they killed the 40. But then you could see a lot of guys their times and measurements were awful. The 3 cone drills were historically bad this year too.
Love it. What about you, Jack? Number 53.
So I have realistic picking Antoine Winfield, the safety out of Minnesota.
Yep.
You can see the trend. I really am liking the secondaries in these drafts. I think he's another guy who I really like coming out of Minnesota. That's a realistic option for them. And then I have Grant Delpit, the other safety from Louisiana State, which was a nice compliment to Jefferson. I think I think you're going to go for safety early on in this draft, and those are just some of the options I really like coming out of this draft.
Love it. For me, my realistic pick for number 53 is Trayvon Diggs. I love his athleticism. Howie Roseman won speed. This guy has it. He could play on the outside. He'd be a really good addition. But my home run pick, and would be just send me off the moon, is Jalen Reagor in that second round, man. Speed. This guy brings it. I've been on the Jalen Reagor train so long, and I just would envision Carson just moving this guy all over the field. And just taking advantage out of his yards after the catch. The Eagles' offense is always at its best when it's involving the screen game, getting guys yards after the catch. Jalen Reagor would be an amazing second-round pick.
Yeah, it just makes so much sense for Reagor, too, because his dad, Monty, played for the Eagles, worked for the Eagles, so we should have the inside track on it, and he's exactly what we want. We want a speedster that can move all over the field, get the ball in his hands, screens, everything. Oh. I definitely agree with that. I love the kid. I think he's awesome. He has the right attitude, and there's a lot of people rooting for him. Like him and Henry Ruggs were talking right after the combine, and Ruggs is like, dude, don't listen to what anyone says. Like, we know who the good people are in the combine are.
Yeah, totally. Let's move on to the third round. They have the pick number 103. It's a compensatory pick. Chris, what is your realistic pick? What is your home run pick in that third round?
Third round. Right now I have Troy Pride Jr. from Notre Dame. He's one of my personal favorite players. I think that another pick that I think either or. I think he might even be the home run because I think people are talking about him in the second. But I think the real obvious pick is if they take Amik Robertson, because I know that he's one of the only pre-draft meetings that we got through before everything kind of went crazy. He's really good. He's kind of like Tyrann Mathieu, Honey Badger hybrid type of player. Just absolute playmaker. A little undersized, but when you watch him play, he's playing against teams like Texas. He's going against larger wide receivers. He just eats them alive because he's so athletic. He's tough, and I really like him.
Awesome. Go ahead, Jack.
No, I've got Damian Lewis, offensive guard out of Louisiana State. You really don't have much depth in the interior, in the front, in the middle three of your offensive line. Tackle you have a little, but not much. I think you could really look to bring an offensive guard here early on. This is the prime spot to see an offensive guard go, is the second and the fourth round. So a lot of these guys can be really true hard-hitting NFL talent. So I really do like one of those options there. Now I also have Gandy Golden, the wide receiver from Liberty. I really do like him. I think he's going to be a really good NFL player. He's just overlooked because of his school, I feel, and I think he's going to be a really great NFL talent going forward. I think that'd be a steal for the Eagles at that pick.
Fantastic. My third round realistic pick, I'll start off with Bradley Anae. I think defensive end, I think they're going to get one here in the top 3 rounds, so I'm going to add him there. My home run pick here would be Devin Duvernay. I just think that he has he would be a legit upgrade over Greg Lewis, another guy that you can kind of line up all over the field. He's got the speed to go on the outside. He has the route running to kind of play in that slot as well. He's got great hands. This guy plays like a power forward in basketball. He just really grabs the football in the air. I really love Duvernay and his fit with Carson Wentz. Let's move on to the fourth round. Go ahead, Chris.
So I know we have 4 picks here. It's kind of like swapped around. So the 3 people I'm really looking at, you can say home run or just like obvious picks. AJ Dillon from Boston College.
I was waiting for that one.
he's one of my favorite players. I'm hoping that he falls into the 4th. The funny thing is Gail Saunders, who I work with, he's actually friends with AJ's mom, and they just think it would be such a perfect pick for the Eagles because he would just be such a perfect complement for Miles Sanders. He's a lot more athletic than people think. He's not just this big dude. He actually finished top 3 in the Spark ratings. It was like speed, like everything at the combine. And the 4.5 flat really helped his stock. Antonio Gandy Golden, I know that Jack just highlighted him in the 3rd round. I think he's going to be like 3rd, 4th range. It's kind of hard to say exactly how early he's going to go just because it's a stacked class on top of it with no pro day or the meetings. Maybe he doesn't get the opportunity to really showcase his off the field assets, because people say he's just a really good guy, just leadership role. He'll be excellent in the locker room. So maybe he does fall to the fourth. Logan Wilson from Wyoming, the linebacker. He's the other fourth round pick I'm really looking at. Also, Justin Chernett. Those are just some of the names that I'm really highlighting in the fourth round.
Fantastic. What about you, Jack?
So I'll give you my realistics to my home run. My realistics, I have Davis Gaither, outside linebacker from Appalachian State. I think he's kind of a flex guy. You can put him kind of almost like a Nate Gary almost. You can put him if you need him in the front four or the mid four. I mean, if you need him outside linebacker, you bring him up on an edge rush. I think he's a flexible option there for Philly. I think that's an interesting look for you there. And I also have, this name's going to confuse you, Lamar Jackson, cornerback out of Nebraska. I mean, that's just another, secondary depth. I mean, you just can't go wrong with that. I think that's another interesting option. Then I also have Rashad Robinson, the cornerback out of JMU. That's another cornerback option. My home run picks, I have, you mentioned him earlier, Devin Duvernay out of Texas. You nailed exactly, what he would bring to the table with them. And I have Matt Peart. He's a 6'7" offensive tackle from UConn. I mean, it's just, you can't teach that size. I think that'd be huge for you in the edge. I think that's a good protection future, just a guy you can build raw talent for Carson Wentz. And then Jalen Hurts. I think you talked about this before, Chris. Just a backup quarterback option. If you don't know if Sudfeld's it or not, or a guy you want to develop, they can maybe flip later on. I think he's an interesting option. He's proven himself on multiple college teams. He's very well composed, mature. I think he'd be a great NFL-ready backup for Philadelphia.
Love it. My realistic picks, I'll go through them, is Damon Arnett. I love his footwork. I love his ability to anticipate the routes, his ability to provide press coverage. That's something I really want to see Jim Schwartz kind of move towards next season. I don't know if it's going to happen. I hated how far back our corners played all year last year. Another realistic pick I have is center Nick Harris from Washington. He's kind of small, but he's very athletic. He could be that eventual Jason Kelce replacement down the line. Another realistic pick is Terrence Steele from Texas Tech. I think at some point you're going to see the Eagles get a tackle. Obviously, they lost Jason Peters and Big V, so that's going to happen. And Chris already stole my home run pick. It is A.J. Dillon. Obviously, I love his power running style. Just would be an ideal fit for what the Eagles need. Just that pairing next to Scott and Sanders would be so freaking legit. Another home run pick is Kayvon Wallace, man. He's a safety cornerback. If there's one thing we know about the Eagles defense and Jim Schwartz is they love versatility. This guy, it can play both positions. He can play quarterback and safety. And another home run pick could be safety Shaheem Carter out of Alabama. He's a kind of in that Malcolm Jenkins mold, man. Like, this is a guy that can play up at the line. He can stop the run. He's aggressive. He's a guy that can play downhill and kind of be that hybrid linebacker like Malcolm Jenkins was, maybe a project. So that's that. Any last comments, Chris? Thank you so much for joining. Make sure you follow Chris on Twitter. I want to get this in before I forget. At Mallee _ Chris at Mallee _ Chris _ 24. Thanks for joining, Chris.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on. And with the whole Yannick situation, I know it was kind of crazy a couple of days ago when I posted about it. But yeah, it was a legit source though. My one buddy, he tipped me off with the Foles trade, the Ramsey trade, the Calais Campbell, and the AJ Boye. And he just gave me a heads up. He said, do with the information what you want to do. He said, if you get cheat for it, it's okay. He goes, but it was Seattle, Miami, the Eagles were one of the only teams that had a formal offer. And as you've seen, Yannick's been kind of like either trolling us or like really predicting what's going to go on. And then to confirm it, my one friend that I went to college with, he actually grew up with Yannick in Maryland. And I texted him, I said, hey man, I said, can you reach out to him? And he said, listen, like, if and when he comes to Philly, he goes, I'll set something up. And he said, you guys are going to get to hang out and you'll be able to troll everyone. And I said, I'm not going to be that petty, but I said, I just want him in Philly because I think he would be perfect. He's an incredible player, and I really respect his on and off the field presence. And I'm just saying, man, get ready because after Clowney signs, it's going to set the market. I think Yannick and the Eagles are going to see kind of what's going on. And then, hey, man, I think Howie's I think he wants to push the chips in while also having being prepared for the next couple of years, but at the same time is he knows you can't look for the future all the time. Like if we can use next year's first, offload some other contracts and like maybe Alshon and throw some other picks in there and just load up this defensive line, like it makes a lot of sense. Like because Yannick's not staying in Jacksonville. Like he said it. Other players like Leonard Fournette have said it. So let's see if we can steal him from Jacksonville and be playing on Broad Street again.
I mean, I'd do that trade in a heartbeat. He's 24 years old. Like he's like the best of both worlds. So there it is. Would you do that trade, Jack?
Yeah, I'd do it. I mean, I just want to get the rest of the roster situated. If it's in the future first and it's future things you're able to get rid of, it only feel like it only will make sense if you can get rid of Alshon's contract. I think that's just the one thing you got to work out to get this done. Otherwise, your money, you're going to be very straight up tight against the cap.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it. If you can move Alshon's contract and you're not giving up that much draft capital, I mean, I would pay for a first and another pick. I mean, besides that, I don't know if I really would do it. I don't know if that's really a necessary need for Philly at this exact moment.
Okay.
Yep, agreed.
All right. Make sure you check out Chris on Twitter. Check out Jack on Twitter at Jack Connell TPL. For Jack, for Chris, for myself. Thanks for watching, guys.
See you guys.
Sixers win it! Wow! Oh man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles? Let me get a hell yeah!